Hi, I'm CJ and this is my RC channel.
So now it's time to do shock absorbers. And this is a very nice set of shocks. Take a look at this detailed blow up right here. Our stack has 1, 2, 3 solid pieces, and or spacers, however you want to describe them, and 2 O-rings. I might be able to get X-rings to make those even smoother. But here's a detailed view of the stack without the cap on it. That's a lot of structure that helps keep the shock shaft lined up straight. Shock shafts, if there aren't enough pieces here, I've talked about this many times before. Cheap shocks, you'll find 1 O-ring and no extra bushings and stuff like that. Having all this extra structure it helps keep the shock shaft from leaning hard to one side or the other and pushing hard against the sidewall with the piston. Prevents the pistons from doing its job of sliding up and down nice and smooth. The piston is supposed to kind of keep this in check, and between this and the piston provide a nice smooth running action without a lot of stiction. If you don't have this structure here, you get a lot more stiction in your shocks, and they tend to kind of like lock sometimes. If you've ever seen that in a shock where the suspension isn't moving at all, you're pressing down on it, and then because it's all the way at the top, the piston's at the bottom, and it's being jacked to one side a little bit, and you give it a good push and get it into motion, and then once it's off bottom, it moves along a lot better. That's not because the piston's at the bottom, it's because the piston is being pushed hard against one side or the other, and it's binding. I've shown you guys enough shock videos. It's kind of ridiculous at this point. Even just to do one, you can go through any of my car videos, and shocks are they're all unique to a certain degree. Every set of shocks is different, each manufacturer at least. There's lots of similarities, like I'm showing you here. That's the mark of a really good set of shocks. But there's no point in building 4 shocks in front of you, bleeding them, everything else. It's just got to be thoroughly boring for you guys. So what I'll do is I'll start building the shocks off camera. If I come across interesting stuff or things that are very unique to this kit, pitfalls or special features, I'll go ahead and record that and include that. Otherwise, I'm just gonna pick up the video with the shocks built and going through the mounting process, and from there we go on to mounting our servo, mounting the side rails for the body, starting to put in our electronics, things like that. There is a piece that I bought for this car that I'll tell you about now. It's specific to the motor mounting. Let me go ahead and pull this out. Also, I've got some shock stuff too that I'll show you. I've got some springs, but that's not very important. Springs are easily covered later. And I mean, as you can see, I've already gotten spares of various shims, things that break, things that are wearable. So I'm ready to set up my field box, and if anything gives me troubles or I need to rebuild stuff like diffs and such, I've got all the replaceable parts. So these are all Tekno parts here. Now, these are a set of shock cups, or as they refer to them, spring perches. And what's different about these, I haven't looked at what's in the kit. This is like an additional thing, but they may have included this in the new kit. They may not have. So I picked it up. It was only a few dollars for this. and basically you're getting a taller cup. Have you ever had your springs come off of your shock perch during a race, like you get smacked by somebody and that the spring pops off the perch? That can be a real problem. It throws off your handling. There's nothing you can do to bring the car in and fix it. These are taller perches is what's supposed to make them something to buy. Locking shock rod and spring perch set, updated 16mm shocks. So we'll see if the update was in the kit, and if it is, I've got spares. If it's not, these are going on the shocks. Okay, shock shafts. Let's see here. We've got the 122mm and the 107mm. These are everyone's got a different name for this. It's a coating, like trinitrile is what I think Tamiya and Losi call it. It's a Ti-Ni coating. It's a titanium nitrile coating, basically. It makes the shock shaft more slippery. It's precision sealed and polished, so there's less seepage through the seals, and that's pretty hard to do when you've got double seals to begin with. So this helps, you know, kind of smooth out the shocks and just make them function a little better. They run about $20 a pack, so it's not cheap. It's a $40 upgrade. But shock absorbers are such an important part of your car. I cannot understate that enough. So not a bad thing to put some money into. These are a special set of screws. They are for your lower shock mount, where the shocks mount to the A-arms, and they are designed, the threads are clockwise, the other pair, the threads are counterclockwise. That's why they're giving you two different colors, so you remember which side to put them on. And the idea is that as the shock is moving up and down, it's also rocking back and forth. And depending on which direction you put them in, they're always going to be trying to tighten versus loosen, or the other way around, is the logic behind this little upgrade. Those are not very expensive. And last but not least, we have this guy here. And this is it's the ALU motor mount. And it is designed to work with the existing mount bracket. You screw your motor onto this just like the factory piece. But what it's designed to do is to lower the motor as close to the chassis as possible. So the standard mount, it's a little higher. This one helps lower the center of gravity by taking that 300-gram motor and lowering it by a handful of millimeters. And as you can see here, I've got a bunch of springs. The kind of silver ones are a low frequency spring. They tend to feel softer, but even though they're not progressive, they kind of have a progressive feel to them. They're very plush. They seem really easy to get into motion, not so stiff, but they do, have a lot of weight to them at the same time. And I don't mean like physical weight, that they're heavy, that they support a lot of weight. So I got the fronts and rears in both yellow and pink. And I think I've got one other color coming. And the factory greens were the other color that a lot of people were running. I've also got factory yellows on the way, not the low frequency, the regular yellows. And so those tend to be in the range that seems to work best for dirt and clay tracks. Carpet, you want to go a little stiffer. But for the type of tracks I'm going to be running on in the immediate future. These springs here should really give me a nice range of choice. So I'm going to put these, I'm going to get my part box out, start getting that organized with all the spares and little knickknacks, and then I will start building shocks. And as I said, if I come across anything that that I think is noteworthy that isn't in any shock building video I've already done, I'll go ahead and include that. I'm trying to keep these builds a little more reasonable. You guys let me know. Tell me what you want. If you want to see, you know, the shocks built in every video, great. If you'd prefer that, you know, I kind of gloss over, skip over stuff like that when I'm doing the build, and then like give you one big shock video where I have several different types of shocks. I talk about, you know, emulsion and bladders and all the different types of shocks, the way you can bleed them, you know, springs, preload adjusting, all that stuff. Just do one big shock how-to video that, you know, kind of gives you a one-stop shop, you know, or if you'd like all of the above. Tell me what you guys want to see. Like I said, I've done so many videos where already I at least built one shock absorber, you know, front to back, and did the other, you know, 3 off camera. If you want that to continue, great. So let me know. Please comment. And I really need you guys to click like. I really need you guys to take the minute or two it takes to subscribe. Okay, I've mostly finished building the shocks. I didn't run into any real issues. Everything goes together just as one would expect. If you've ever built any shock absorbers, these are, you know, basically the same to do. Depends on how you want to do them, whether you want to do them, you know, using bladders, or if you prefer emulsion. Personally, I prefer emulsion builds. I guess I always know what I'm getting when I do it that way, because I'm bleeding it. I'm not relying on a bladder or something like that. So you got it to do emulsion with these. You need to drill the caps out. You need to drill the caps one way or another. Either you need to put a vent hole in the side of the cap, or you need to open up the hole that is started here. It's drilled almost all the way down, and you need to open up the bottom of the cap. Now, they say to drill. I didn't drill. I think drills can be messy. They can cut inconsistently sometimes. You could enlarge the hole a little bit and not have it thread properly. What I did is, I went through the bottom of the cap and I used a body reamer. It's a very thin amount of material that you need to cut through. And it's easy enough to see right where you need to start the hole. Point it in the direction of the existing hole that's drilled into the shaft or molded in, and just, you know, turn it around a few times until you get it started, and then auger out that hole, and you get a very, very clean effect. You're not leaving material behind. You're not leaving sharp edges that you know, might catch an air bubble or something. It's just smooth, and it seemed the easiest way to do it as well. Came out great. I didn't have any problems. The first one I did with the body reamer, and I just knew that was the way. It was obvious. Anyway, I used the plastic caps a couple times. I had a hard time getting the caps started, and I had to just rotate backwards a couple times until I felt it. You know, I had to press down on it while rotating backwards to get it to drop into the threads correctly. And then once you start turning, you know when you've got it. You don't want to cross thread these. If you feel that it's going in off angle, if you feel the threads are resisting, you're going you're going to ruin the cap. Back off, just keep twisting backwards until it clicks and clicks. I did not like the plastic spring retainers, the preload adjusters. Two of them went in nice and smooth. Two of them, it was like time in a dentist chair trying to get them to thread up. I tried lubing them up a little bit with some grease. I tried some oil. I could not get them to loosen up. One of them almost started cross-threading on me, and I thought, you know what, to hell with this, and I ordered the aluminum preload adjusters, and I'm gonna go with that. It's not a huge expense, and I think you're getting a better part. I would prefer aluminum caps and might go that way down the road. I don't know. But I was able to use these properly. It's like I said, you just got to be careful to make sure that they are lined up correctly and that it's not starting to thread offline, because it definitely tries to do that on you. So take your time, and once you get it starting to thread, it threads down, it seals nice. I really didn't have any problems. I just had a few little issues, I would say. And other than that, they went together great. I went ahead and put on the body mounts because I wanted to start working on paint on the body, and I needed to hang the body over it. So I threw on a pair of wheels, sat it down flat on the table, you know, let the chassis just hit the, you know, set flat on the table so the wheels were at their, you know, max up, and measured things out and marked body holes and things like that. These are, I think, an add-on. They may be in one of the bags that I haven't gotten to. I ordered these separately. It's a little pair of mud guards. I put them on with some aluminum hardware just to keep the weight down on them. It is adding a little unsprung weight, yes, I know, but keeping, you know, dirt and grime thrown from the front tires, getting into your linkages and stuff back here, and into your hubs, it's definitely worth it to have them on there. If you've ever run a car, an off-road car that has these versus one that doesn't, you know the difference. I used the stock mounting posts for the shocks for the time being. I didn't have a titanium solution for these. I did swap out the standard nuts for aluminum anodized nuts, and I used aluminum screws to, it's basically just it just keeps the plastic body mount in place if you are in the process of moving the shock mounts, so you've got the posts off, so you don't have to deal with the this plastic piece just falling off on you. So it's just like a retainer screw. So I just used aluminum hardware for that. Again, it's not really load bearing in any way. I did have to flip the front shock tower. If you recall, the front shock tower has a cutaway portion on it. I had that facing rearward. It needs to face the front. It's not a big deal. It actually kind of is a benefit because the way it's cut, it's designed to hold the flat spot for these shock tower mounts, so you don't have to put a wrench on it like you do on the one on the rear. Just use a crescent wrench or a small pair of pliers to hold it while you tighten the retaining nut on the back side. But that's all I've done off camera. Everything else is on the way. I decided to go ahead and order the aluminum steering rack, the plastic piece that's right here that holds the two control arms. When I was tightening the bolts down here, adjusting the this is where you would adjust bump stop. The plastic is supposed to hold the nylon lock nut for you, and it's soft enough that if you give any effort at all, you start rotating that nut. And I'm worried that I'm going to try to take it off sometime and it's just going to spin on me. I'm going to have to like try to get a pair of needle nose pliers in that slot there to hold it. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and put the aluminum one on there. It's about $18, and I figured that just from a convenience of use, it's not a strength issue, I don't think, personally. But I thought I would go ahead and replace this one piece with the aluminum option. Other than that, I'm not doing a lot of additional aluminum parts. Everything's looking good. I'm waiting on some shock parts. As I mentioned a moment ago, I'm going to start putting on the side rails, getting the servo going, motor and such. So the build is progressing well. Everything looks good. I have no complaints about this kit. Everything built up well. It goes together very quickly. I was surprised. I've worked on kits that just seem to take a lot longer. Maybe it's because I worked all night long on this the other day and didn't sleep, just pushed through all night, and was probably a little loopy toward 8 in the morning or so. May have made it seem like it went quicker because I was half awake. I don't know, but it does go together, you know, quickly and easily. I definitely like this kit, and I'm really looking forward to driving it. It's really solid. You get the feeling that there's no weak parts. This isn't gonna, you know, go to the track and break easily. Okay, so we are now on to bag N, and we're going to be taking this left side of the chassis pan, excuse me, right side, and we're beginning with the servo mount, and it's a little confusing. I don't know, it just seems overly complicated. I mean, it seems like it's going to be a very sturdy mount, but I'm not sure if it's designed to hold more than one type of servo size other than standard. It doesn't seem like it. We have an aluminum bracket, which the chamfered side, which you might think would be the top, is actually the bottom. Your servo slides in like this. You need to take this plastic piece here and use that to mount the servo from this side, not the drive side, to this aluminum bracket. And you use a pair of M3x14s for that. Then this assembly drops in to the side panel. Like so. And then you're going to bolt the front of the servo to that pan through the two forward holes in this servo bracket, and then you're going to attach that bracket further to this pan through this hole and this hole here with two more pieces of hardware, which are probably the M3x6s. Let me just verify that. No, that's going to be, I'm sorry, those are going to be more of the M3x14s. So nice, long, solid pieces of hardware. It seems unnecessarily long, truth be told, but you know, as they wish. In any event, like I said, it just seems overly complicated. It doesn't seem like it's made to fit anything other than a standardized servo, because this aluminum bracket is only so wide. It might allow for variance in the mounting holes themselves. I'm not sure if that's why they did it this way. It like I said, it just seems like they went out of their way to use as many bolts as possible to mount this, but you know, like I said, so be it. I'm fine with it. It certainly is going to be strong. It's not going to go anywhere. So, and in fact, there shouldn't even be any flex at all. So I'm going to go ahead and mount this up here. I'm going to start by, you want to make sure that these forward holes here align with the holes on your servo versus the rear. The rear is slotted, and that's why there's this floating piece that your bolts go onto. I'm kind of surprised they didn't just give us a couple of lock nuts to put back here. But there may be a spacing issue with that, so I'm just going to go ahead and use the piece provided. But like I said, you want to make sure these holes mount up here, or you're going to have a problem when you try to put your bolts through the up at this end. So since I'm going to be using the titanium hardware on this, I'm going to go ahead and pre-thread this piece. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the video. Okay, I did something a little different. I'm still in the process of assembly here. I found this plastic to be very soft, and even with the length of the 14mm screw, once you've gone through these through the servo and the aluminum, there's not that much thread. I just don't think it's strong enough, considering how robust everything else is. To rely on this piece of plastic, I just didn't like it. So I used 2 10mm screws and 2 nylon lock nuts, and so everything snaps right in. There's no clearance issues by using the bolts. They're just fine. Everything fits exactly the way it's supposed to. So that's what I would recommend doing. 2 M3x10s with lock nuts. And also, just to make sure this is as sturdy as can be, instead of the 14s that they give us for these 2 locations here, these 2 locations you got to use the 14s because the material you're screwing into bottoms out here. But these holes go all the way down. Those are long posts. So I'm going to use 2 16mm bolts, one here and one here, just to make sure this is as solidly locked in as possible. So that's just how I'm doing it. If you guys want to follow that, it's my recommendation. If not, you know, as you wish. You'll probably be just fine with the stock assembly, but you know, this is your steering servo, and I wanted to make sure it was not going to go anywhere. So that's why I did what I did. Okay, some advice. I started you know, running my wires. The servo wire will run down here to the receiver box as you know, described in the instructions. And I started setting up this mounting plate, and I was, you know, trying to figure out where I wanted to mount my speed controller. And then I thought, you know what, I want to see how much room there is, you know, with the drive shaft included. And so I went ahead and just kind of lined up stuff here. The servo goes right up against the bulkhead here, and I haven't put the motor in place yet. There's only so much room. The speed control would have to be right up against the edge here to not have these wires rub against the drive shaft, and even then they're gonna have to be like tucked around, like behind the negative wire post or something like that, to keep them away from that. So mounting the speed control in this direction or in this direction might be better. Then there's the issue of the wiring. If I put it in this direction, which is probably best overall as far as things being clear of each other, the wires for the motor have to come up and over like that, which might not be a bad idea, because if the motor wires are, if I mounted it this way, the motor wires are about 1.5 inches long, and that doesn't give them much flexibility. It makes it almost impossible to remove the motor for any kind of service without removing the speed controller. Either that or you got to have some, big flexi loop of wire or something like that. So I may go ahead and position it like this. The battery wires will be a little longer also, as with it in this position, but I think I'm okay with that. If I got to spend weight somewhere, I'd rather have it be things like that. So I'm going to go ahead and mount this plate to the chassis and then mount my speed controller. I'm going to put the motor in place, at least temporarily, so I can kind of see where what my distances are. So that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm not going to demonstrate that on camera. There's no need. There's nothing complicated about screwing this plate down. But I'm going to talk to you about why I'm doing things, and just as I did with the speed controller, what issues I'm coming up against. If you've got a speed controller that's smaller, it might be taller but a shorter footprint, or a smaller footprint, forward and left and right. Great, you can position it however you want, but these these XR8s take up a little more space, it seems, and so I'm not sure I want to put it this way. I may end up doing it this way. I've just got to make sure that these wires are not gonna chafe up against the drive shaft. If that happens, it'll wear through that silicone very quickly, and it'll short them out, and I'll be replacing a speed controller before you know it. So I don't want to do that. Okay, did a few more things, made a few more decisions. You may have remembered these if you saw the earliest videos on this, where I told you all the different things that I was going to be putting on the kit. This is a Tekno option item. It's part number TKR5504. It's a pair of air control guards, as they call them. It's a 1mm thick Lexan. It's pre-drilled for you. I had to widen the holes a little bit to accept the hardware. I just used a good old body reamer for that. It was no trouble at all. I used aluminum hardware because there's just, it's not a high strength item. I used 2 10s and 2 8s on each of them respectively, because the plastic that they go into, the outer pieces, are a little shorter. So I didn't see the need to have, bolt sticking through the bottom. Just to kind of get an idea where we're at here as far as weight savings. This is all of the steel hardware that I replaced with titanium or aluminum, and it is 184.77 grams, so 185 grams. Most of it's titanium, some of it was aluminum. That's got to be at least 45%, 40% down from that number. So that's probably saved at least 85 to 95 grams of weight, almost 100 grams saved by swapping out steel hardware for titanium hardware. And just to get another measurement on that, that's 6.52 ounces. So you figure that's got to be in the 3.5 to ounce range of weight saved. So fantastic. A lot of weight taken off. It's going to be really interesting to see how this weighs out built against the minimum weight for the class. It'll be interesting to see if I end up needing to add a little ballast somewhere. Hopefully I don't have to add ballast, but I'd rather have to add ballast than be over. It'd be nice to come in under that weight amount. As you can see, the servo's mounted. I put on both trays. Simple enough. I didn't record that. It's just a few bolts. The servo arm, again, is a very simple linkage. You just screw the two pieces together on a threaded grub screw, and use the appropriate horn. They give you 3 of them. I went ahead and used their horn. It's pretty beefy, even though it's plastic. I don't see a problem with that. The steering linkages are plastic and stuff. There's a servo saver. The servo saver would probably actuate before this thing would bend and or break. So I'm fine. I don't need to replace this with aluminum. I think I've decided that I'm going to place the speed controller basically in this position. I'm going to keep it off. I don't want it to contact over here. Probably place it right about midway, and I'm going to have the battery leads coming over this way, and I'm going to have the power leads for the motor just arch over. I'm going to try to leave a little bit of slack, kind of maybe curl them around a little bit so the motor is movable. I don't want it on, you know, such a short leash. Even though the plate that this attaches to is removable, it still just seems like it's better to have to not have that, you know, so tight a linkage with those wires. I don't want them to be longer than necessary, but you know, again, like I said, I want to be able to at least pull the motor, you know, part way out if I need to do some cleaning and stuff, and not have to remove the speed control. So everything's going really well. I did some work off camera. I put on these air dams, or whatever they call them. Basically, it's designed to kind of help fill the gap between the body and the chassis and reduce the amount of air that gets in, help deflect air under the car instead of up into the body, so that you get a parachuting effect. As you can see, I've gone ahead and soldered up my speed control. I finally decided on pointing it in this direction. Your speed control may vary depending on its size. My power switch, I'm probably going to tuck along here and two-sided tape it here, or it's not going to really fit on there, so it's probably just going to be right here. That way I can just reach up under the body and get to it quick. This is the receiver box. As you can see, the receiver's in there. Got a little bit of an antenna stub. This receiver has a very short antenna wire, so I'm just going to leave this up here. It'll be underneath the body and out of the way. I put on the 2 wires for the batteries, for the battery, excuse me, singular. You'll notice I've got a bit of an air gap here, some space. I talked to somebody who's had experience with this kit and the Losi. In fact, I would definitely consider him an expert. He's very young, but his family owns a local racetrack and hobby store. He's been working at the hobby store for years. He's raced everything from 2-wheel electric buggies up through all-wheel drive, gas. Mainly he's been focused on off-road because that's what they race at their track. But as I said, he's got a lot of experience, and he knows a lot about handling and tuning. I spent about an hour talking with him the other day, and he was just a wealth of knowledge about you know, tuning combinations and things like that for this and other vehicles. And he says that the only thing he didn't like about the Tekno short course truck is it tends to land a little nose forward. So you've kind of got to bear that in mind in your jumping style and things like that. So I'm really glad that I've taken as much weight off of here as possible. So hope it's going to be interesting to see how this weighs out. I'm hoping I am at or below the minimum weight so that I can add ballast without a cost, as it were. That ballast I'm going to add rearward. So that's why I moved this. I positioned it sideways and moved it backwards a bit. I might even make a larger mounting plate here. I might make one of my own so that it's a little longer, so I could scooch this back another 1/4 to a 1/2 inch to try to continue moving weight rearward. I'm going to position the battery as far rearward as possible. I may even modify this box here to move it further back. It does seem like everything is positioned forward on this vehicle, and that might be an issue. So things that I might do would be to trim this section out here, remove the entire battery portion here, the mounting thing, and set it up so the battery can come back as far as this bulkhead. That would be about almost a 1/2 inch rearward. So we'll see what goes with that. Another thing might be to mount the battery so it's up on its side, or use shorty packs. There's a variety of things that I can do to try to move weight backward without making without actually adding physical weight items. Anyway, we'll see where that goes. So the body posts are on. I went ahead and screwed these on. I've pretty much used titanium throughout and aluminum any place that I could. Any of the blue screws are all anodized aluminum. All of the screws are, everything else is titanium. I don't think I've used more than a couple of steel pieces of hardware on this vehicle. There were some things I could not change, like the droop screws. Those are as low as the center of gravity gets, so I'm not worried about that. Got the titanium turnbuckles, titanium screws down here, titanium kingpins, so we're as light as we can be. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please click like and please subscribe to my channel.